Believe it or not, this position is white to play and win. If you would like to pause, how do you think white can win this position? Well, if you had a chance to look at that, let's talk about why this is such an interesting position. So normally, if you're down 2 pawns in an endgame, there's no way you're going to win. You might, at a best case scenario, get a draw. And especially in a queen ending, usually the queens can just kind of constantly put you in check. It seems unbelievable that white would be able to win this position. But it has to do with the fact that black's king is so poorly placed in the corner. This is actually something that applies to all phases of a chess game. When your king is poorly placed or in trouble, sometimes the extra pieces that you have don't actually matter. And that's what we see here. So the question is, how can white take advantage of that and actually create a way to win the game? And the move is, wait for it, queen to h1, lining up on the king along the diagonal, but you'll notice it's not actually a check because our king is in the way. However, there's a very clever reason for going here, which we'll talk about in just a second. First, I want to point out, if you tried any other moves, like let's just say king to b6, trying to just kind of get your king close to the king and maybe come down here for a checkmate like this, black has a number of things that they can do, but the easiest would be to just start putting you in check, just like this. And you don't really have much to do. Yes, you could take a pawn, but the king can just simply move to b7. And if the king ever gets away from the corner, you're never going to be able to checkmate it and win, right? So you can't really let that happen. Same kind of thing with king to c7. The queen can just put you in check. There's lots of moves. Let's just say queen f7 check. And you can't really get out of the checks from the queen. So let's come back now to the move queen to h1. Now, this move is actually creating a threat. Even though it doesn't look like it because it's not a check, it's actually creating a threat. And let's just take a look at that. If black, let's just say, decides, you know what, I'm going to push my extra pawn, well, now they just get checkmated. We simply slide our king to the side, unleash the queen, and when the king moves, we have checkmate. Okay, so that is the threat that we are making. So black has to deal with that. On a similar note, if black tries to move the king to get out of the check that way, we also have a response. So if you would like to pause, what do we play if the king moves here? If you had a chance to look at that, the move is queen to g1 check. We can't come down here because it's covered by the black queen. But by throwing this move in, of course, black can't come up because we have queen to b6. So they have to go back. And now we can come all the way down to g8 check, then to g7 check. And now there's no way for black to stop checkmate on b7. So wherever the king moves, here or here or here, it's always going to lead to a checkmate right there. So it doesn't really matter. You can see that, right? The only thing black could do would be sacrifice the queen to delay the game by an extra move. All right. And on a similar note, going back to the original position here after queen h1, if the king tries to go to b8, if you would like to pause, we have a similar idea. If you had a chance to look at that, the move is queen to h2 check along the diagonal. Now, this is an important move because if you said, well, we could just come straight down here to h8 and win, you would be wrong because of the move queen to c8 check. If black can ever force a queen trade, remember, we will lose, right? We're down 2 pawns. These guys are just going to go and become a queen. So we can never allow a queen trade like this. So because of that, after king to b8, we have to play this check first. Of course, the king can't go here. We just have checkmate. So black has to go back over here. And now we can come down because there's no longer that queen trade. Now if black goes there, we just take it for free, right? Before it was a trade, now it's for free. And after this, again, we go to g7. This is the same position that we just looked at. Wherever the king moves, we're going to have checkmate. Okay, great. So we've talked about the threat behind queen to h1. We've talked about what happens if black pushes the pawns and if black tries to move the king. However, you're probably thinking, Nelson, there's a whole bunch of queen checks, and I thought you said that black could just constantly put us in check. So here's the clever idea that I was mentioning earlier about queen to h1. First of all, let's look at the checks. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so these are the 5 checks that black has. I mean, there's a few other checks, but we would just take the queen. So these are the 5. These 3 are basically all the same. They're all along this this rank. Sorry about that. So let's take a look at that one. Let's just say queen to f6 check. What are we going to do? There's a very clever move here. If you would like to pause, what should we play? If you had a chance to look at that, it's king to c7. And the amazing thing about this is that we are getting out of the check from black, and at the same time, we're putting black in a discovered check with our queen. It's an amazing concept of how we can get away from the check and at the same time putting black in check, which means now they can't keep checking us with their queen. They have to move their king, and when they do, guess what? We have checkmate. So now you can see how clever this idea of queen to h1 was, lining up on the king like that. We're setting up so that when we have to move our king later from a check from black, we're able to do it with tempo on the black king, basically. So same exact thing on any of these three moves. Okay, we just bring our king up and we win. On queen to c2 check, it's a similar idea if you would like to pause. If you had a chance to look at that, king to b6 is the move. Same thing, we sidestep the check at the same time we create our own check, and then we can deliver the checkmate. Now, black has one final check, which is actually the better option for black. Queen to c8 check. And why is this the better option? Well, because it defends the b7 square. So now when we play king to b6 with check, we no longer have a checkmate, right? That was kind of the whole point before. We had checkmate on b7. We don't have that anymore. Black's queen is defending. So in this position, what do we do to win the game? If you had a chance to look at that, this is one of the coolest moments in this study, in my opinion. So the obvious move of queen to h7, trying to come over here and checkmate, doesn't work because black simply starts putting us in check. They put us in check here, or even here, and they just keep putting us in check, and we can't really get away from these two checks. So that's why that move doesn't work. It looks nice, it doesn't work. So what we have to do is this mind-boggling, incredibly awesome maneuver with our queen, where we walk a staircase, essentially. So we go check, and the king has to move. Of course, it can't block with the queen. We just take it, right? We just take that. And then we go check on g2. And it's the same kind of situation. The king has to go over. You say, what did that accomplish? Well, we moved our queen from here to here. And then we do it again. Check. King has to go over. Check. You say, what did that accomplish? Well, we moved our queen from here to here. So essentially, we've gone from here to here to here. Like this. Right? And you're probably starting to see the pattern. Check. King goes over here. Check. King goes back. So we started here and went like this, and like this, and like this, and like this, and like this. Why did we do that? Why did we do this? See if you can pause and figure out, how did this maneuver help us? Well, if you had a chance to look at that, it's the move queen to e7. And it's the same idea. We would like to come over here and checkmate. But remember last time, the queen stopped us because there was a check here and there was a check here. Look at our queen now. It's covering both of those squares. There's no good checks for the black queen. No good checks. Nothing black can do to stop checkmate. They can like sacrifice their queen and delay the game a little bit. But other than that, it's an unstoppable checkmate. So just to recap, we brought the queen over to h1, lined up on the king, and then we had to go like this, so we could come down to e7 and deliver the checkmate. And all the while, black had these two extra pawns, which didn't help them at all. Amazing stuff. Let me know what you guys think. I really enjoyed this one when I was preparing for this video. I'll see you guys next time. As always, thanks for watching. Stay sharp, play smart, and take care.